Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the moderator of the next session, Terry Martin.
Oh, thank you, thank you. I'll just put down my tablet here and continue to hold this one. Good afternoon, and welcome to what promises to be a fascinating discussion about artificial intelligence and what it means for our economies, our societies, and our public institutions. A quick question. There's still some people coming in. Please join us. Happy to see you. But just wondering, AI, why you're here, how you use it, if you use it. Just quick raise of hands. How many people here actually use AI in their work, or ChatGPT or anything like that? Cool. Yeah, that's looking like 90%, a good 90%, maybe more. Yeah, that seems about right, because AI is no longer a tool used just by tech companies or researchers or labs. It's now shaping really the things that we produce, the way we produce things and learn, how we govern, how we work. It's just a part of our lives. It's creating big opportunities, but it's also raising really big questions that we don't have answers to yet. It's still evolving. Some of these questions: how do we share the benefits of AI fairly? How do we make sure that nobody gets left behind, or that as few people as possible get left behind? Because it is a disruptive technology. We can't pretend that it's going to just come along and everybody's going to be able to stay the way they are. That's not what's going to happen. But there's also the question about how it will impact democracies, or other kinds of government for that matter. How can democracies be protected, stay competitive, and maintain public trust? Yeah, these are really big questions. And we've got a great panel here to explore these questions. Our experts are from science, from business, from government, and from civil society. So we've got a really good mix of ideas, and I'd like to invite our guests on stage, our speakers, beginning with Shaikha Almazrouei, is lead scientist at the Biotechnology Research Center. Please all just come along and we'll get ourselves seated and get going. So all of the speakers, please come on board.
Thank you.
You can sit right next to me. Again, Shaikha Almazrouei is lead scientist at the Biotechnology Research Center of TTI. That I looked that up. It stands for Technology Innovation Institute, but I knew that anyway because I've been to your country and you guys are making waves. She works on applying AI to life sciences and medicine. Michał Baranowski, we know each other from Warsaw, is now Undersecretary of State in Poland's Ministry of Economic Development and Technology, and he's helping to shape the country's digital strategy, among other things. He has lots of things to do. Next to him, Daniel Castro. Turns out that we share a common history together in North Carolina at a university there. Anyway, right now he's vice president at the Information Technology and Innovation Foundation in Washington, D.C., and a leading voice on AI policy and innovation. Next to him, Pervinder Johar is CEO of Avathon, which uses AI to improve global logistics and supply chains, to put it as succinctly as one can. Next to him, Sarah Myers-West, co-executive director of the AI Now Institute, and focuses on making AI more transparent, accountable, and fair. So, warm round of applause for all our guests, first of all. Thank you for coming all the way here to join us. Now, we've got a Slido poll. It's already been up on the wall. I just want to introduce it, draw your attention to it, and ask you to consider picking one of those 5 possible answers. It's a multiple choice poll, made it quite easy for everyone. You can find Slido on your phones. I'm sure you've already heard this enough times at this event. I don't need to repeat it, but there's a QR code there you can scan, and then you get straight to the poll, and we would love to get your input on that. We're going to bring the results in about halfway through this session. The question being, which of the following should be the top policy priority to ensure that AI benefits everyone equitably, as it were. Good, and you can also use Slido to submit questions. There are 2 ways you can do questions. One is submit them on the Slido, or raise your hand, and when I've given the floor to you, someone will bring you a microphone and introduce yourself. We're going to be doing that towards the end of this session. So that's how we're going to run along. We're trying to have a dynamic discussion here on the stage. We have multiple perspectives, multiple spheres of life and work that are represented here in multiple parts of the world. So I'm really looking forward to this. Now, let's get started. Let's just go straight into the question. I'm going to start with you, Dr. Shaikha Almazrouei. You work at the crossroads of AI and biotechnology, right? And I'm just wondering, how is AI shaping your field, first of all? And how do you make sure that this technology, this is a great concern that people have, how do you make sure this technology remains safe and benefits people across the board?
Thank you, Terry, for the question. It's a pleasure to be here and speak about the importance of the AI in the healthcare and the biotech field. Well, AI today is everywhere, in our phones, cars, homes, when we go shopping mall, clinics. So it's playing a very vital role in our life. And when we speak about the healthcare, it is a very important area where AI played a tremendous role, actually, for improving the service and improving the healthcare outcome in terms of diagnosis, in terms of data analysis, in terms of prevention. If we talk today about the surgery, the patient can imagine and can see the surgery he will be going through even before that by utilizing the AI and the virtual reality tools. And from a wider perspective on data analytics, when we talk about the involvement of AI, I really want to highlight on a very important aspect by utilizing the AI on the data analytics. You know that today the precision medicine is one of the main goals of the nations. Everyone is looking to provide a precision medicine to its population. And when we talk about the precision medicine, we're mainly talking about the genomic data.
So this is personalized medicine. Yeah.
So for us to analyze a full genome sequencing, we are producing minimum 300 gigabyte per person. And that only for the genomic data. If we are talking about a multi-omics data, where we are combining all the imaging data, and then we are collecting the medical history, biomarkers, and all the omics parameters in terms of gut microbiome sequencing or any imaging data or any other tools. Having all this data together is not something easy for us to do it by using Excel. Impossible. So the AI played the role here, and we witnessed all this transformation by having all this genomic data to be analyzed from a month to a week to days and now to hours. Without the AI,
so you can take the entire genome sequence that takes up all those gigabytes, and within 2 hours you can use AI to get the results you're looking for.
I know that some platforms are able to do it within hours, but the race is really ongoing to produce faster platforms to analyze and to integrate all this data to come with a personalized solution for the patient. So AI is really a powerful tool, helped us to come out with those precision diagnostic and precision medicine solutions.
There's one part of my question that you didn't touch on, which maybe we can come back to that a little later. We'll get the discussion moving along, and that's regarding the safety of all of this. There's great concern surrounding that. So maybe you reflect on that, and I'll come back to you with a question about the safety, particularly in the areas that you're talking about, because there's great concern about that. It affects people personally. Michał Baranowski. Poland is investing in AI for economic growth, among other things. I mean, I know a little bit about Poland. I live in Germany right next door, and I'm aware of the dynamism in Poland in the IT sector, and it's really quite fascinating. What's your government doing to help workers and industries, both, adapt to these changes? Because they're two different things, right? You know, they involve each other, but there are some people who are really concerned that they're going to be losing their jobs and they don't know what they're going to do. And this also affects tax revenues for the government that you are part of.
You like those taxes?
And you want to get those industries, those high-tech industries moving along. So, yeah.
Yeah. Terry, great to be with you again on the panel. Great to be here at GlobSec, and I'm going to be also in this panel, just listening a lot. But I will try to contribute from the government perspective. So in our government system, I'm the guy responsible for growth as a Ministry of Economy, for opening trade as a Ministry of Trade as well. So for us, fundamentally, AI is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to make our workers more productive. We know that we can boost already very high economic growth, and I will do a little plug for the Polish economy. We are the fastest growing economy in the EU with 3.2% per year, and those creates those tax revenues that you said, as a source for the way that the government is working. There are a few things that are happening at the same time, and areas where we have more homework to do. So one of the big focuses of the Polish government is to make sure that our SMEs are well digitalized, and Poland is not on the top. We are getting better, but we need to speed up. And of course, using AI will be a key aspect of this digitalization. And there are a number of programs that SMEs can access to get digitalized. And this is for Polish SMEs who might be in the audience or maybe not, or maybe listening online. Please check out. We have a one-stop shop for all AI tools that you can use. There is also a Polish large language model, Plum in Polish, Plum, or Plum in English if you want. And that's something that we'll be rolling out both to help the businesses and, in fact, another important customer for us, even though we are part of the government, is the rest of the public administration. When I talk with my colleagues in the ministry, I convince them that I'm trying to convince them that this is going to help them rather than replace them. But this is again the productivity boost. Another very important tool in their fingertips. We are far from AI that can fully replace our brilliant civil servants, but we have to be of course mindful as the technology develops. But again, this is not in my portfolio that much, that we look at AI getting to a place where it's really starting cutting into our labor force. But I'm sure there'll be other colleagues on the panel that will address this, and I look forward to engaging in this discussion.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in the skills sector, right? I actually work with Kosminski University on a research project where we look at the impact of automation and AI on employment and the skills sector and what's going to be needed moving forward. A lot of interesting stuff going on in that realm. I guess your employment ministry is more focused on that than you are. But Daniel, let's bring you in here. You study how AI is used across different parts of the economy, where would you say that AI is making the biggest difference so far? And where should governments focus their investment and time in trying to shape its development?
Yeah, it's a great question, and thanks for having me here. I mean, one of the I think the most important messages I often have for policymakers is that you don't, when we're thinking about AI policy, we often jump to what could go wrong and how do we have regulations and policies to prevent things from going wrong. And my point is we also need to think about how might things go right and how can we have policies that support enabling things to go right. So basically, how do we maximize the potential benefits of these emerging technologies? And in AI, I think that's what we're failing to do right now, just globally. We're really missing this big opportunity. A lot of countries are focused on how do we seize this opportunity to be the leading developer, or how can we use it in a few areas, as opposed to thinking broadly about, this is a transformational technology. And what we know about even transformational technologies, even a technology like AI, where, the advancement is happening so quickly, where you look at, where generative AI was, 2 years ago versus where it is today, massive improvements. But just where AI was, 10, 15 years ago versus where it is today, massive change. And AI is more than just generative AI. What we see is that you have adoption in certain areas of the economy where it's really easy to do it. So, for example, we don't need really much of a government strategy around using AI for basic coding, right? Programmers get on ChatGPT, they get on Claude, they use the tools already. That's not really, there's no real barriers there. But we do know there's real barriers to adoption in core areas of the economy where the government is highly involved. So things like education, healthcare, transportation, areas where we know there's going to be potentially massive benefits to the economy and society, where if we can use AI in transportation, we can significantly reduce, road deaths and injuries. If we use it in healthcare, we can be saving lives. We can, reduce infant mortality. We can address so many different issues. And in education, this is one that I'm particularly really interested in, where even the tools today, there's so much that you can do to empower students, especially everything from primary and secondary school to higher ed, where you can basically give them a world-class tutor at their hands. You can have them get a personalized education plan that we couldn't do before. Incredibly powerful, incredible opportunities to increase educational outcomes. And yet, this isn't what we have most policymakers talking about. We have them talking about the risk, and we don't have them saying, well, how do we actually get to this end state? And that, to me, is, there should be this urgency here of doing it, because, we know that these things don't just happen on their own. You look at, electronic health records in healthcare. We know using digital health records, you can save lives. We also know it's taken billions of dollars and billions of euros of investment to get these systems up and running and decades of work. It's really hard to do digital transformation, and we need policies that support that. And so, when I talk to policymakers, that's my message, is let's look at these big opportunities. Let's get some excitement and momentum and investment in these areas, because it's going to take the private sector and the public sector working hand in hand to achieve these benefits. And we can't just say, well, there's some risks, so let's wait and go slowly. No, those are missed opportunities. There's costs there, there's lives that can be lost, and there's also, we're missing opportunities, if you care about the risks, to also shape the technology by being an early adopter.
Interesting, because you mentioned public and private sector. Right now, I get the impression that the private sector is very much driving whatever is happening in AI, and it's not caring too much about what policymakers in any particular country are doing. They will move. Can't move that quickly, but it's a global, interesting, fast-moving industry, and the role of public policy in shaping that is something that, in a positive way, it does need to be talked about more. It's my impression as well. Pervinder, from your business experience, you're based in San Francisco. A lot of stuff happening there in this realm, of course. What would you say that is the biggest impact that AI has had so far on how companies operate, and what do you think still needs to be done to make it work better?
Sure. I think if you look at where AI is being applied, as you mentioned, it's everywhere, but you broadly divide it up into what is called kind of a IT areas and OT areas. And OT stands for the operational technology, and which is really embedded into everything we use today. So autonomy or autonomous driving, autonomous flying, all of that is part of an operational technology where we're trying to see can these machines do better than humans. Right? So in San Francisco, you guys know, Waymo has been around for a long time. The number of accidents caused by Waymo is so much fewer than the number of accidents that would happen normally because these cars don't go over speed limit. They have more cameras than human eyes. So as humans, we can see only with 2 eyes. Now these cars have so much more, which is embedded into it too. Same thing if you think of, we're no more than 3 or 4 years away from air taxis. Right? So whether it's going to happen in 2930 or sooner, it's going to be just like autonomous driving. We're going to be back to autonomous flying to some extent. And when you think of autonomous flying, the first thing comes to mind that we don't have enough pilots today. So if you don't really think of using AI and these operational technology where we're using all of human senses, right? So if you think of AI on operational technology, you have to think of, we have 5 senses, how do we go and embed that into anything which is autonomous, right? So it's vision, it's smell, it is touch, it's all of those things are now you're able to go do. But then there are things like perception, right? Which is where if you think of work we have done, vision we will say now is highly mature. And so there are so many applications of computer vision now in our daily lives that it's very mature. Even the traditional cars have so much which is around that you're so used to knowing now that you got that blinker on the side, that there's a car next to you, which again on the vision applications too. Perception we are far away from, and because we haven't figured out how as humans we perceive something is going to go happen. And if you think of flying, perception plays a very big role on that side too. Then you have so it's not only then about the pilots. We don't have air traffic controllers today. And so we are all aware of what happened in DC and what happened in Newark, and think of the number of planes which are on in the skies today. With air taxis, the number is probably going to go up 1,000x to 10,000x over the next 2 or 3 decades. So starting to think about autonomous air traffic control systems, which we are involved in along with our one of our aircraft partners. And these are the things, again, are things which have not happened yet because we still need few more years to go through it. Then there are IT areas. IT areas is where you hear a lot more about large language models, and you hear about ChatGPT and others. And those are almost getting to a point where there is no more training data left for us to go and train large language models. So we are at that point, right? So the reason after ChatGPT 4, the 5 is taking a long time, that we have exhausted all data available in the world, in there, especially for the English language data. Right? So I know you talked about Polish language, and there are more things to go do for multiple language or Arabic languages or so. But just on the training data side, you're almost at the end of LLMs. That how much more can they mature? So we're talking about how do I go create synthetic data. So it depends on the level of maturity. Right? So on some of them, it's that we are almost there. And then other areas like I talked about, and those are not only 2 examples, autonomy and autonomous air traffic control systems, but there's so many more where the work is being done.
It's fascinating because we're talking about diffusion, right, of AI technology, and you were looking specifically at mobility, whether on the air or in the ground, and we're at a forum where there's quite a significant representation of the defense industry, and I know in the defense industry, in terms of flying, there's a whole lot going on, and sensory technology, which you're mentioning as well, hugely impactful. But the idea that we're running out of data to train the large language models is an interesting prospect in itself. Sarah Myers West, you you've argued for more democratic approaches. We're talking about governance of AI to a large degree. What does that mean when you're looking for more democratic approaches? What does it mean in practice, and what would you say should be done to make sure that the public has a say in how this technology is used? Because so far on this panel, we've got, it's been pretty upbeat, go AI, right? And shape it more positively moving forward. Anyway, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for having me. So yes, I think that in the approach to AI, we really need to be foregrounding the interests of the public in how AI is governed. So just taking a step back, I think in the conversation around AI, there's been a lot of focus on technological transformation and technical progress, and not enough discussion about power and that how the sort of deepening and transformation of power relations is going to impact the public. And in the introduction of AI, and in moments of technological transformation, the public is exposed to significant instability and risk. And what we see in this sector is, value capture and heavy levels of concentration all the way across the stack and across every sector. And the concern here is that AI development will ultimately further the interests of only a handful of players who are best positioned to capture the commoditization of AI without other kinds of intervention. But I think what's been helpful in this conversation is an acknowledgement that there isn't an inevitability to any particular trajectory for AI, and there's a tremendous role for public policy to play in shaping that in the sort of broad democratic interest. There's been a lot of discussion about AI and industrial policy and investment in AI, and there, I think, really taking an approach that is more holistic, that couples the interest in investment in this sector with strong regulatory scrutiny is really what's needed to make sure that AI is resilient, that it's competitive, that it's secure, and that it's publicly minded. And I think, secondly, it's really critical that we don't index on one sort of version of this technology. Remember, AI is a very broad field. The term AI has meant many things over the course of, its almost 70-year history. So not focusing in solely on, just large-scale foundation models at the cost of other kinds of basic research. I hail from the US, and there's a deep irony in the $500 billion investment that was announced around the Stargate project, which was, sort of claimed, among other things, that curing cancer would be the outcome at the very moment that we're defunding the National Institutes of Health and its investment in cancer research.
Yeah, powerful illustration there of the of the tension in all of this. And it's funny. I live in Germany. Germany is famous for being risk averse, right? I was a business journalist for many years. Used to interview economists all the time, and they would tell me, what is this thing? This risk aversion. We really need our companies to take more risk and move forward. But we haven't talked too much about the risks. We're starting to get into it a little bit. We're going to get into that a little more just now, because there is deep public concern. And Germans are really specialized at asking the question, why should I do that? Or, could that hurt me? As opposed to kind of an American mentality of, why not? Let's try it and see what happens. And if it doesn't, if it's bad, then we'll change it. Anyway, we'll get into that. What I'd like to do right now, though, is go back to our poll and see what the answers are to our question. The voting, if there's been any voting on this question, which of the following should be the top policy priority to assure that AI benefits are equitably distributed? We've got a pretty clear answer here. Cross-border coordination on AI safety and governance. So we realize that this is a global thing. It's not, as I mentioned earlier, it's not going to happen in just one individual country. There's a lot going on, including in UAE and other parts of the world are just really leaping ahead in some ways. And we see national AI strategies with enforceable ethical guidelines. Okay, so we see both going on there. Thank you for your replies, by the way. It looks like we got 57 people plugging in on that. Now, the Slido also gives us an opportunity for questions, and I would love to we got 20 minutes left. I'd love to bring in some questions from you guys. We can start with that by looking to see if there's anything coming in on the Slido. If not, that's okay. Yeah, we just have one question there about enforcing ethical AI to respond to nations that deliberately avoid regulating it, what to do in an international context. Maybe we can pick up on that. Talking about sensitive data. Health data is very sensitive. It's hard to get more sensitive than that. But let's open the floor to questions. We've got one question already down front. And so just raise your hand. I might be able to group them a little bit. I think that is Benjamin Tallis. Please identify yourself and ask your question.
Thanks very much, Terry. Correctly identified. Benjamin Tallis of Helsing, the defense AI company. And I found it interesting that only one mention of defense was actually made. In the context of Germany, which indeed famously risk-averse, famously cautious, and famously difficult to digitalize, the one exception to that is the current boom in the emerging tech defense industry in Germany, where in a cluster around Munich, which is including where our company was born, you see a whole group of companies really pushing ahead, forging European leadership on defense AI. But let me say two things on that as to how we actually evaluate what risk is. And I think the point that was made about power just then is really essential. We have to understand the risks and opportunities given that we are in a global power competition, given that we are in a competition to actually attain tech leadership against our authoritarian rivals. There are serious costs to being risk-averse in developing this technology if we don't actually master it in a way that puts us in a position of geopolitical leadership. So my question to you is, how do we overcome resistant bureaucratic processes? Because it's actually not been public resistance to famous debates about killer robots and things like this. We take ethical assurance extremely seriously in the defense AI business because we realize the stakes that are involved. It's not that that's holding us back. It's actually classic bureaucratic process of procurement agencies and others who don't have categories for the type of things we produce. And so we get stuck in a bureaucratic mess. So we're not currently leveraging what could be a true strength in geopolitical competition. How do we take advantage of that better?
Daniel, it sounds like a question for you, first of all, in terms of how public policy can better shape this to empower.
Absolutely. I mean, I think most policymakers are focused on the second part of that problem, which is how do you keep the technology out of the hands of the adversary as opposed to how do we actually make use of it ourselves, which again, is kind of an easier problem for them to wrestle with. They see this risk over there, let's stop those people from using it and don't deal with that question about how do we accelerate adoption in the US. I mean, something that I think is a kind of positive alignment there is that we are seeing, the defense industry, really starting to make more connections with Silicon Valley in terms of thinking about, this needs to be a strategic partnership, that, we want our tech companies to be integrated. And I think part of that, it's not just are they using the good technology, it's also are they adapting the mentality that I think we have of let's innovate, let's be creative, let's kind of rethink these stagnant, bureaucracies that were built for, a couple of generations ago and haven't really evolved significantly. So I think there's big opportunity, not just to see, not just let's buy the technology, but let's rethink some of these things. Can the Pentagon be significantly more efficient as an organization in the United States? I mean, that's something that I think we should be thinking about. There's also things about just improving the warfighter. Thinking about veteran health and safety. I mean, there's so many opportunities there, and we're starting to make some progress, but we haven't seen that radical transformation. And again, I think you're right to focus on procurement because that is one area where there's been a lot of focus in the US in terms of saying, well, we're not going to get venture capital to invest in this area if these companies can't scale up because they can't sell to us. So there has to be that alignment. And In-Q-Tel, which did that for the intelligence community with Palantir, huge success story in terms of creating that market. I think you have to do that with defense, but it shouldn't be the US just doing it. It should be a NATO alliance doing it. And I think that's where we really need to change things. And my concern is that when I hear some of the conversations in Europe, it's about European sovereignty. And then when they're talking about building this out, it's not about the NATO alliance and having this larger counterweight to China. It's about, well, am I building something with German money in Germany and French money over here? And I think that's not a good challenge. And I realize as Americans saying we need a stronger NATO alliance probably isn't the right message or messenger, but that's at least how I personally feel on it.
Michał, I know you want to bring in, I think just about everybody on the panel wants to say something about this. Michał, let's start with you.
Just couple, and Ben, it's wonderful to see you. A few things. Fully also agree with, or perhaps it's important to point out that we are in the arms race in AI with our biggest challengers. And they, especially, perhaps are less concerned about some of the governance issues, some of the human rights issues than we are. That doesn't mean that we should abandon all of our regulations. Not all of our regulations are bureaucratic.
When you say arms race, you mean literally?
I think it's literally enough.
Weapons, right.
I mean, it's both in terms of dominating the, boosting our economies, but as Benjamin said, I mean, AI is going to be absolutely critical for the future of our security and defense. And you can look at at this stage, you look at the Ukrainian spiderweb operation, where they very nicely and successfully destroyed a big chunk of strategic capability of Russia. That will be, from what I understand, being just reading about this in the news, this would be impossible without it. We know in Poland that this is a critical area in which we have to invest in security and defense, and the war in Ukraine is showing already that the future is now in this context.
Sarah.
So I think in thinking about whether there's an AI arms race, it's really crucial that this be staged to be a race to the top, not a race to the bottom. And just yesterday there was an announcement that the Pentagon has gutted the team that's responsible for testing and evaluation of AI military systems. That's not going to help shore up the national security in the long run. So I think really there's a reason for having testing and evaluation of systems before they're deployed. It's really important that testing and evaluation be conducted not on a sort of by the companies themselves, but there be robust third-party testing and evaluation that's conducted because the risk there, and it is a very real risk, is that in the interest of trying to speed up technical prowess, you end up actually undermining the ultimate national security of the states that are using AI.
Shaikha, apparently there were some problems with your headset there at the beginning, so they brought you a microphone. I'd like to bring you in here. Maybe you should use the microphone. Seems to be some technical issue there. Sorry about that. But we began at the beginning. I mentioned the safety concerns surrounding your industry, and we're talking regulation, AI, how it can be used effectively for the benefit of all, and its benefits distributed equitably without endangering our societies. How does this work for you in your particular? You're in the United Arab Emirates. There's a different regulatory environment. There's a different governance model in your country. I'm just wondering how this fits into where you are and what you're doing.
So talking about the security of the data and the encryption and the anonymization of the data is a really important aspect, especially in the healthcare. When the UAE started putting the UAE Genome Program, which is one of the world's largest genome project, that didn't come within an idea only. It requires readiness in terms of infrastructure. G42 at that time bought the world 26 Artemis supercomputer to have this data stored and secure on that cloud. And then also to make sure that we are really applying the rules and the policies of data security and privacy among all the devices we were using to extract those data and transferring them to the cloud. So all these policies was built and made sure that they are in place even before starting the project. We have trained the people on how to make sure that the data will stay encrypted in a way that will make sure all the people are trained and prepared for such a very important project. Saying that, from a policy-making perspective, the UAE always make sure that they are involving the highest technologies or the most advanced technologies that will ensure having all this in a place. When I joined G42 during that period, believe it or not, I thought it will be a small project. I was surprised, honestly. It was and it's still today, it's the only place on planet where you will find the whole 3 different type of sequencing technologies from different part of the world are placed there. And all these technologies was brought based on a decision making that they will serve the goal of having this data generated and secured in a way that they will be really protected. Once this data will be generated, there is another story or scenario about it. Who will be allowed to access this data and how they will use this data in case if there will be any commercialization out of this data, if there is any solution will be coming out of those data, how this data will be commercialized to the end users who are really waiting for such data. When the UAE decided to have the genome program on 1 million sample, that was an announcement to the world because the genome project was having a little amount of the Arab population. So having 1 million sample to be added to the world genome data will be a huge addition. So that was the goal of having such program to really help to design a personalized medicine for the population and to also have a good addition to the global genome initiative with having all this data being secured and encrypted in an international standards.
Thank you. That puts it a little bit in a broader global context. Pervinder, I know you've been waiting patiently to say something, and then I'm going to try to get another input from the audience. So if someone out there is thinking about a question and you've got it formulated, please be ready for it. Pervinder.
I think just to go back to the defense, we work with DoD, and we've been doing it for the last few years or so. One, there are tremendous benefits, and I did not know that the testing thing happened yesterday, too. If you just look at kind of on the benefits side of it, our fleet readiness for US, broader fleet kind of today, it's somewhere around 60% at a given point in time. So 40% of the fleet is not usable, and then in the best of times, it has been that maybe 30% is not usable. And I think application of the AI technologies, I think our theoretical number of what's possible is that out of $1 trillion of budget, you can probably take a couple of $100 billion out of sustainment and logistics and apply it to the future weaponry. So if you just think of the business case on that side is so strong for defense that majority of the countries, Western countries, are focused on it. And of course, kind of China is very focused on it today. So I wouldn't kind of lose sight of that, what we're really talking about in that case, the benefits for defense in particular. And defense is slightly different than how to work with FAA, right? Kind of in the public safety side. So you again, when you talk about policy and safety and what it really means, one is kind of more for civil usage. Another one is kind of that you're dealing with how we go to a theater and a war and what happened in Ukraine. They're just two different sides of policies and two different level of risk. which is acceptable. Some level of risk are acceptable in a war theater, which are never going to be acceptable in a public policy on whether it's on health or education or others.
So another question from the audience. Thanks, Benjamin. I mean, we've got some, lots of input on your question. It generated a lot of thought here on the panel. So, other questions? Yep, gentleman there in the front.
Thank you. My question has to do with...
If you could just please identify yourself.
Sure, Asen Vasiliev, Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Finance of Bulgaria, currently in opposition.
Well, thank you.
And working quite a bit with AI. So most of the AI that's publicly available is available through APIs. And that's how it's used. You use OpenAI's model, Google's model, Anthropic's model, DeepSeek, whatever it is. Let's imagine you deploy it in your economy, like our Polish colleague said, and your industrial processes depend on using that AI reliably. What happens if the API stops responding? Isn't that a critical dependence of your economy and critical processes in society?
So I'm sorry, I didn't acoustically quite hear that question.
Yeah, and the question is, what happens if the API stops responding and you're creating, if you're a European, dependence on US or Chinese technology that you have no control over?
Okay, that's an interesting question. Michał, but I mean, whoever wants to jump.
Well, I mean, I'll just say briefly, I mean, I think that's the argument that a lot of the open source providers say is why you should use open source, because you can deploy it on your own infrastructure that you can control. So there, that risk can be significantly mitigated. I mean, you can run it on European infrastructure with a European provider over European ISP. So I don't think it's a risk. You have these dependencies with APIs across the board, and you have dependencies beyond APIs in terms of just all software that we use today has lots of integrations and code that's drawing from different parts. And so if any of that ecosystem fails, that can be a problem. But that's part of building up resilience, is specifically to address those kinds of threats. So kind of big picture, I don't think that's actually a significant concern as long as an organization is thinking about what's the fallback if we are using a dependent API. And it's no different than with other cloud-based services where if Google Cloud goes down, if AWS goes down, it's a significant problem. But that's why, for the most part, they don't go down because they know it's so critical and they actually invest quite a lot in making sure they have very high uptime.
Sarah, I'd just like to bring you in on this because, I mean, this is a bit your specialty in terms of dealing with what if, right? What if and how can we shape this AI development in a positive, more democratic way that is going to protect the interests of society as a whole. Just wondering what your reflections are on what we just heard there.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you described is the kind of systemic risk that we need to be treating very seriously with the development and deployment of AI. And I think it's, potentially even worse in scenarios where we're transitioning over to the use of AI agents, where there's sort of even less direct scrutiny and more sort of autonomy given to an AI to act outside of human control. I think that the answers are really, you have to cut back to the heart of the concentration within the sector. We just heard today, it was confirmed that Meta is acquiring a 49% stake in Scale AI and bringing on Scale AI's CEO into the company. We're seeing sort of a deepening of concentration within the AI field, and I think that's where having stronger competition enforcement needs to be a really foregrounded part of the regulatory toolkit.
So we only have 2 minutes left, and I'm, I work in broadcasting. I always try to end a couple of seconds, just before the end of the show. So we're under a tight deadline here. 2 minutes. One quick question to the whole panel. Please, a one-sentence answer. What is the one thing that could be done right now to help improve public trust and confidence in the development of AI moving forward, starting right here next to me? Going down the road. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think training the AI and feeding it with the accurate data.
Michał.
So I haven't thought about it before, so I have no idea. Maybe.
Sorry about that. We can
this is
do
good stuff.
Longer follow-up
on the panel. Thinking, I think so. From the economic perspective, I think I would like for our societies to be trained and sort of getting used to using AI as a tool, so they feel like they can be more productive rather than they can be replaced by AI.
Very good.
I created the Center for Data Innovation about 12 years ago, specifically because I thought we need more data, and I think that's still true today. Exactly because we need more representation. We need to have more access. And for many people, we focus on the digital divide. There's now a data divide, and we need to be closing the data divide globally.
Pervinder.
I think for me, it's more on demystifying and educating people what AI is. Because I think there still is, many people think AI is ChatGPT. And that's where they stop. Right?
We're on a huge learning curve.
Yeah.
So we talked a whole bunch about the risks of AI. We talked a little bit about benefits. And I think one of the things that's really been missing from the conversation is looking at safety in relationship to efficacy. There's a lot of promises about AI, but before sort of indexing on making wholesale societal changes in the interests of these promises, we need to make sure that there's actual proof to the pudding that these systems are going to work as intended.
Thank you very much for keeping your answers brief on that tough question. I acknowledge that. Just want to say a big round of applause for our guests, our speakers here. They're marvelous. I learned a lot. It's a very diffuse topic. We're all on a big learning curve, including myself. I look forward to hearing more about this moving forward. To our audience, please do stick around because we've got on stage in just a few seconds from now, we'll see a presentation by Julia Osmalowska from GlobeSec, followed by a panel on Ukraine's security future. Thank you very much.